Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Andrew Kirchhoff, and today we're going to be going over the AFC West fantasy preview for the 2018 NFL season. Didn't mute my Twitch. Anyway, so hey everybody, how's it going? If you haven't seen any of my other streams or my other YouTube videos, when we begin a video, we go over the rankings for the prior divisions that we've gone over. We've gone over 5 prior divisions, and these are how my rankings have been set. I'm just going to talk about the additions from last episode, which was the NFC West. So when it comes to quarterbacks, we've added Russell Wilson, number 2 overall ranked quarterback in 6-point per passing touchdown leagues. We've added Jared Goff at 13. We have Jimmy Garoppolo at 17. And we have Sam Bradford at 29. As I said before in last week's episode, if you haven't seen, Russell Wilson, using his legs, gives him so much value. Throwing as many touchdowns, 30-some-odd every year, gives him tremendous value in fantasy. Jared Goff stepped out of his shell last year. The offense is around him. The offensive coordinator is giving him situations to be successful in. And everything that's culminating within Los Angeles with the Rams is going to have some pretty good fantasy value. That's why he's 13. He's not in that QB1 range because, like I talked about in last episode, having the consistency and producing multiple years then I contradict myself with Deshaun Watson there. Let's just watch the episode, okay? Watch the episode, you'll get an idea. Okay, God dang it. Anyway, the Galapagos Islands, Jimmy Garoppolo, GQ, at 17. He's good in two quarterback leagues. A lot of people within the industry as of right now think he's a top 12 quarterback. I don't have that same belief. I understand that Kyle Shanahan is his offense coordinator, but I don't put top 12 value into Garoppolo right now, considering he's playing in a tough division. Sam Bradford at 29 because he's going to start in the beginning of the season, but just be ready for Josh Rosen. Maybe you have to pick him up off the waivers if you play in a 2 QB league. For running backs, we added Todd Gurley, number 1 overall, obviously. I mean, if I was to put someone else there, it would probably be Le'Veon Bell at the number 1 spot, but with the kind of production that Todd Gurley had last year, the efficiency and the offense that surrounds him, I'd be hard pressed not to give him the number 1 slot. As of right now, a couple weeks back, I was harping that Alvin Kamara should be the 3rd running back taken off of the board, and I've changed my mind. That's why it says all rankings are subject to change. David Johnson, in my opinion, considering the fact that he is the only running back within that offense. And yes, Alvin Kamara has talent. He has opportunities because Mark Ingram will be suspended for the first 4 games of the season. I think at the end of the day, Kamara's stats will be taken back by the production of Mark Ingram. That's why I've put David Johnson at 3. But anyway, it's all rankings are subject to change. There is a possibility that I change it back. Some information comes out. Anyway, so besides those 2 running backs, I added Jerick McKinnon at the 17th slot for the 49ers. He's definitely going to be in RB2. He's going to have a lot of production. And I have Rashad Penny at 19, who's a rookie out of SDSU, like we talked about last episode. And for the Seahawks, he's going to be the lead back. They've needed a lead back since Marshawn Lynch left, and at least the healthy Marshawn Lynch left. And I think that is it. Other than that, those were the 4 running backs that we added the running back slots. Now, when it comes to wide receivers, what did we add? For sure, let's see. Doug Baldwin at 11. He's going to be a wide receiver 1. We have Larry Fitzgerald at 12. He's going to be a wide receiver 1. Why? Because Larry Fitzgerald is consistently a wide receiver 1, despite his 34 years of age. Doug Baldwin had a little bit of slump year last year. But I see him coming back because of the fact that Paul Richardson and Jimmy Graham are no longer with the Seattle Seahawks. Doug Baldwin will be asked to do more, and he'll have to produce more. And, I think he's up for the task. Other than that, I added Brandon Cooks at the 19th slot. He's going to be, he has upside of getting into the higher. Actually, let's call it lower. He's a lower wide receiver one around T.Y. Hilton's range. They're kind of the same player, but at the end of the day, there are other receivers within that receiving core that will take production away from Brandon Cooks. What else did we add? Pierre Garçon at the 23rd spot. And as of right now, I'm thinking I probably will add Cooper Kupp to this list. I thought about keeping him off just to make sure that people don't know about Cooper Kupp, so I could take him in every league I'm in. But Cooper Kupp will probably be like around 28, plain and simple. When it comes to tight ends, what did we add last week? Every tight end from this division is garbage, right? Tyler Higbee, garbage. What else? George Kittle, garbage. Ricky Seals-Jones, garbage. Ed Dixon, garbage. The way I see it, and they're all low ranked. The way I see it, if you don't draft the top 5 tight end, you're going to be struggling. Sure, you can go into the waiver wire every week and try to pick these guys up, but at the end of the day, there's no guaranteed value and there's no guaranteed opportunities. You can't guarantee that these tight ends are going to get 8 targets a game, and because of that, they have very little value to me, and that's why they're ranked low. And anyway, that's my ranking so far. As we continue to go through all of the previews, I'll have an entire rankings list done prior to the end of probably mid-July. It'll be finished. But anyway, let's get into the AFC West, shall we? So the winners of the AFC West last season were the Kansas City Chiefs, and this is their starting quarterback, Patrick Mahomes II. So for those of you that aren't familiar with Patrick Mahomes, just a quick intro real quick. Last season, Patrick Mahomes did not start at all until, actually, let's just get into this. Alex Smith was the starter for the Kansas City Chiefs, plain and simple, last year, right? They drafted Mahomes in the first round of the 2017 draft, knowing that eventually Mahomes would become the starter, right, over time. So they let Alex Smith take over as he was doing the last couple years in Kansas City. He had the best season of his career, Alex Smith, in my opinion, the best season of his career statistically in Kansas City last year. He produced, but at the end of the day, they still traded him away to the Washington Redskins because they know the talent that Patrick Mahomes has and that he's going to be the franchise quarterback for this organization from here on out. So here's the thing. Patrick Mahomes, he started one game last year and he got 10 fantasy points total, right? In that one game, as you can see above me, it was 63% passing completion percentage, 280 yards passing and interception. He played against the Denver defense, right? Which is no easy task for any young quarterback, especially a rookie. And it was in week 17 where he had no starters surrounding him, right? A couple of the offensive line was still starting, but there it is. There was no Kareem Hunt. There was no Tyreek Hill. There was no Travis Kelce. And at the end of the day, he still won the game. As a rookie, week 17 against the Denver defense, all of them playing the entire Denver defense, Von Miller coming after you, you still won against the Denver defense 27-24. I mean, that's all they really needed to see. They needed to see him get a little bit of experience, kind of put a couple toes in the water, get experience for this following year, 2018. There's no Alex Smith, but we have Patrick Mahomes. So this is the way I see it for Patrick Mahomes. He's surrounded with endless talent, the way I see it, right? Having Kareem Hunt there, having Spencer Ware there, having Charkandrick West there, that backfield set. Having Tyreek Hill and having Sammy Watkins as your number 1 and your number 2 receiver. This is the first time in a couple years that the Kansas City Chiefs have had 2 good receivers. I don't remember the last time the Kansas City Chiefs had 2 good receivers. I mean, they've always had Tyreek Hill and then some bum on the other side, or Jeremy Maclin and some other random on the other side. There's never, since at least Andy Reid has been there, there's never been 2 good wide receivers on the same roster when it comes to like fantasy production and just overall skill for the Kansas City Chiefs. And they went and they signed Sammy Watkins. That's going to help Patrick Mahomes immensely. They also still have Travis Kelce, debatably the best tight end in fantasy and in the NFL, plain and simple. So obviously there's a lot of talent that surrounds Mahomes, and that gives him fantasy value. The way I see it, he's still a rookie at heart, right? He doesn't have in-game experience like other rookies that have started their entire first season. But at the end of the day, they believe in him, and I believe into him to a point, right? The caveat to this is he's never going to start in your 12-team league where you start one quarterback, right? The only time that Patrick Mahomes is going to have great value is in 2 QB leagues, right? So if you do play in a 2 QB league and you're watching this video, Patrick Mahomes is not going to be taken early. You can take him a little bit later in your draft as your second starting quarterback, and he's a steal. Because at the end of the day, yes, he's going to be a top 24 quarterback, and he's probably going to be within the 18-19 range, right behind like Garoppolo, right? Garoppolo has more name value at this point because we've been hearing his name for the past 5 years. But no one's really been talking about Patrick Mahomes at this point into the season, right? They're just like, oh, the Chiefs, they might win the division, right? But at the end of the day, this kid has great value. He could be a fantasy stud next year. But until we see it week 1, it's kind of a gamble, right? But then again, I don't think Andy Reid would go with a rookie quarterback while still having Alex Smith on the roster if they knew that this kid couldn't do it. So they 100% believe in Patrick Mahomes. They traded up for him in 2017 to grab him. And again, he's definitely a 2-quarterback kind of starting quarterback. Other than that, in regular leagues, he's maybe a waiver wire matchup kind of guy, plain and simple. So let's move on to the backfield of the Chiefs, right? So Kareem Hunt, oh man, let me tell you about Kareem Hunt. What an animal, right? As soon as the 2017 season started last year, the first game of the season, Thursday Night Football, it was the Kansas City Chiefs versus the New England Patriots. First carry of the game for Kareem Hunt, fumbles the ball. He had not fumbled a single ball while at Toledo, the college that he played for, the university. And that was the first time he had fumbled in like 4 years, right? After he fumbled, he came back and put up 40 fantasy points, 3 touchdowns, over 250 yards receiving and rushing combined. He had 40-something fantasy points. He took over the league, and from then on, it was all history. Kareem Hunt was there to take over and to produce. Now, Kareem Hunt was definitely fortunate to be the starting running back in week 1 because the fact of the matter was that Spencer Ware was on this roster, and it still is on this roster. But what happened last year during the preseason of 2017, Spencer Ware tore his Achilles, and because they had drafted Kareem Hunt, the rookie, to kind of eventually take over Spencer Ware's starting position, it just kind of, they threw him in there because the opportunity was available, and Kareem Hunt had to step up in order to, help this team win. And he did, plain and simple. If I'm not mistaken, let me check real quick. Where are we at here? Kansas City. Let's go here. And one more. Sorry about that. Yeah. Kareem Hunt was the 4th highest scoring running back in the 2017 season in half-point PPR leagues. And a lot of the time he was taken off the waivers, right? So last year, nobody really knew about him unless you were paying attention to the preseason and the fact that Spencer Ware tore his ACL because fantasy-wise, you thought, okay, he's a handcuff. If Spencer Ware gets injured, then Kareem Hunt will have value. Well, now in 2018, it's completely different. Kareem Hunt is the guaranteed starter. Spencer Ware, yes, is battling back from his Achilles injury, but there's no health timeline on him. There's nothing to say that Spencer Ware is coming back for his job anytime soon, and we'll go into that next when I talk about Spencer Ware. But let's continue to focus on Kareem Hunt real quick. He had 268.7 fantasy points last year with 272 rushing attempts. That's just opportunity, right? When we talk about fantasy, the two stats that we want to look at is the attempts and the targets, right? When you're being given the ball over 270 times on the ground as a running back, especially a rookie running back, that's all you want, right? You want to know that, okay, the team trusts him and they're going to continue to hand him the ball off every game. And especially this coming season with having Patrick Mahomes under center, they might have to rely upon the run game even more, right? So when it comes to fantasy value, I see Kareem Hunt somewhere around that top 6 running back range, probably the 6th ranked running back in my big board. We'll see next episode, but at this point, he's got immense value. Now the thing is that midway through last season, yes, it looks like Kareem Hunt dominated every week, but that wasn't technically the case. There was 4 specific games where Kareem Hunt was given 11 attempts or less, right? When we're talking about 272 attempts, right? There were games where he had 9 attempts, 11 attempts, and like 10 attempts, right? When you're giving a running back 25 carries a game and then you dwindle him down to 9 a game, obviously his production fantasy-wise is going to be completely different, right? Because attempts eventually garner fantasy points, because the more attempts you get, the more yards eventually you are going to pick up, plain and simple, right? The way I saw it, last year, because he was a rookie running back and they knew they were going to make the playoffs, they try to ease him off and not give him as many attempts as midway through the season went. But that didn't help fantasy owners. That actually hurt many fantasy owners to the point where you thought, do I even start Kareem Hunt anymore? Eventually, as the season progressed, they started giving him back the ball 20 times a game. He was rushing for 115, 125 yards, touchdowns after touchdowns, and he came back to form. But my only worry is, with Spencer Ware coming back, is there a potential of them taking carries away from Hunt? And if they do, will it end up like the 4 games in 2017 where he only rushed for like 20 yards or 36 yards, 48 yards, in that kind of area where he has very little value? But otherwise, if Spencer Ware doesn't show up, Kareem Hunt is a top 6 running back and should be drafted as such. And he also has good PPR value because of his 53 receptions. So earlier talked about Spencer Ware. So obviously in 2017 he didn't play, but in 2016, 214 rushing attempts for 900 yards. Pretty good amount of receiving yards there. If I'm not mistaken, he was a low-end RB1 or a high-end RB2 in 2016. He had value. He was going to come into 2017 the starter. Obviously, his injury set him back. The way I see it, Spencer Ware doesn't have much value because Kareem Hunt has pretty much taken over that spot. And the only thing that I see Spencer Ware doing this coming season is if Kareem Hunt gets hurt, he's a handcuff, and or he comes in every couple downs to give Kareem Hunt a break, and that's it. Other than that, I wouldn't put much stock into Spencer Ware. If you play in a deep league, there's no point of even investing in him, especially because he's coming off an injury and he's not the starting running back. So what's the point of ever, spending a 12th, 13th, 14th round pick on this kind of a guy? I'd rather get more depth and potential from rookie running backs in different places, like we're going to go over later this episode, that will have more value into the future. So, yeah, that's all I have for the backfield of the Kansas City Chiefs. Okay, so real quick, let me check this Twitch. All right, cool. So, Tyreek Hill, the number 1 wide receiver for the Kansas City Chiefs, was drafted in 2016, came into the league, and was pretty decent. In 2016, he did it all, right? He played running back, he played receiver, he was a return guy. If I'm not mistaken, he in one game he had a returning, like a kickoff return touchdown and a punt return touchdown in the same game, which was like breaking NFL history, like Devin Hester status. This past year, he became more of a receiver, with Alex Smith just chucking the ball downfield, broke 1,000 yards receiving, 7 touchdowns, had wide receiver 1 value, and was extremely successful this past year. Now, the thing is, everyone's thinking, oh, Alex Smith is gone. You're putting in a rookie quarterback. His value must go down. Well, that's not the case, plain and simple. The way I see it, excuse me, what the hell happened there? Patrick Mahomes has a stronger arm than Alex Smith and probably more of an accurate arm. Just off of his college film, he has way stronger of an arm than Alex Smith. There's a reason why Alex Smith played so well, right? It's because he was playing for his job, and he had to air it out. He had to take risks, and obviously it paid off for him to the point where now he's starting for Washington. But at the end of the day, I feel like Tyreek Hill's value for this coming season isn't going to diminish too much. I don't see him being a number one wide receiver again because obviously the addition of Sammy Watkins that we're going to go over next. But he's still going to have wide receiver 2 value, and he should probably be drafted as such. Don't overdraft Tyreek Hill. He's very specific when it comes to he's a deep ball kind of receiver that's not going to catch 10 targets a game. Plain and simple. He's a guy that's going to catch 6 balls a game for 70 yards because one of them was for 40, And yeah, other than that, he's a wide receiver 2 kind of value. So Sammy Watkins, right? So here's the thing about Sammy Watkins. He's extremely talented, and especially at his point why am I fucking stumbling? At this point in his career, the way I see it, Sammy Watkins should be way better than he is, right? Last year he struggled with the Rams. The year prior with the Bills, he was injured for majority of the season. Obviously, he's healthy now. Word out of training camp is that the chemistry between Mahomes and Watkins is at the point where everyone's like, okay, maybe Watkins is going to be the number one wide receiver here. Throughout training camp, they've got that connection, constantly producing to the point where everyone's thinking there's quite a potential where Sammy Watkins could become the number one wide receiver of this offense. And the fact of the matter is, having Tyreek Hill on the other side of the field and being that deep threat, it will definitely give Sammy Watkins value to the point to where he could be a wide receiver too. I doubt it because Sammy Watkins somehow always finds a way to get injured throughout his entire career. But, we'll just have to wait and see. Last year, he had 8 touchdowns for the Rams, right? And you're thinking, okay, well, 8 touchdowns obviously is good, but you can't guarantee touchdowns in fantasy. That's the number one thing that you have to remember. In fantasy football, it does not matter how many touchdowns a person had the year prior because those can't be guaranteed. You might just get a flimsy, ricochet off of somebody's helmet and you caught a touchdown. Congratulations, you got 6 points, right? But shit like that cannot be guaranteed. That's why we always try to draft off of projecting receptions and yards. I don't think 8 touchdowns is going to happen again next year. I think his yards and his receptions will definitely go up because this is a better offense when it comes to just feeding 2 receivers. Last year he played third fiddle behind Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods, being the number 2 receiver, maybe even the number 1 receiver for the Chiefs next year. He has potential to have value. If you play in a deeper league with 3 wide receivers, you can pick him up and he'll probably start within your team. Okay, so let's see here. Okay, so Travis Kelce, shall we? So here's the thing about Travis Kelce. He was, in 2017 at least, he was about 1 point shy of being the number 1 ranked tight end behind Rob Gronkowski. The thing is, Travis Kelce is a complete monster. For the past 2 seasons, as you can see stat-wise, pretty consistent. 1,000 yards, 80-some-odd receptions. Last year, his touchdowns went up, right? That wasn't guaranteed, but it happened, plain and simple. And because of that, stat-wise, his stats went out the roof. When it comes to fantasy-wise, 192 points in half-point PPR leagues, Travis Kelce would have been ranked the number 5th wide receiver or number 6 wide receiver if you combined the tight ends and wide receivers. That's why I always say you got to draft a top 5 tight end. And if you draft Travis Kelce, who is the number 2 tight end, if you get to some point in your draft, right, where you go double running backs and then you go wide receiver and you're thinking, well, at this point, all the wide receivers are just kind of toss-ups. I might as well just go grab a tight end that I can fill and never have to replace. Because if you never have to place your tight end, you never have to worry about going and picking up garbage. So I'm telling you, draft a top 5 tight end, and if you can, draft one of the better two, which is Gronkowski or Kelsey. And when it comes to Patrick Mahomes, yes, he's not going to throw the ball to Kelsey as much as Alex Smith did, because Alex Smith he loves Travis Kelsey, plain and simple. Alex Smith loves his tight ends, whether it was Vernon Davis back in the 49er days. The way I see it, as of right now, Mahomes needs to build just a little bit of chemistry with Kelsey, and Kelsey's good enough to just take over and just catch a bunch of passes and have good fantasy value to the point where he's still going to be a top 3 fantasy tight end. Him, which is Travis Kelsey, Gronkowski, and Ertz. Those are the top 3, plain and simple, and he should be drafted as such this coming year. So those are the Chiefs. Next, the San Diego the Los Angeles Chargers. My God. Anyway, Phillip Rivers, Old Man Rivers. Let's see what Old Man Rivers has got, right? So the thing is, Mr. Old Man Rivers, still a top 12 quarterback. The past 2 years have been consistent, 33 passing touchdowns and 28 passing touchdowns. Last year, his turnover ratio definitely dropped, which was fantastic, which is kind of crazy, right? How do you throw 21 picks in a season, right? That's how you lose games. But anyway, they started 0-4 last year, the San Diego Chargers, and somehow managed to come back and finish the season 9-7. So, kudos to them. The way I see it, Phillip Rivers, he's surrounded with talent, and he's going to be a top 12 quarterback, probably my 11th ranked on my board. Phillip Rivers is a monster. The way I see it, if you want to wait on drafting a quarterback and you don't want to pay too much value for the Rodgers and the Bradys and the Roethlisbergers, you can wait out, draft Phillip Rivers, and I swear to God, the point differential between a Rivers and a Brady is literally less than a point per week on average, right? So you're gonna draft Rivers rounds, like maybe 3 rounds behind Brady, but you're still gonna have the similar value, and you'll be able to draft more running back, tight end, and wide receiver depth in place of drafting like a high quarterback that you have to, Brady, it's Brady. No, you can draft Rivers and you can still be successful. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. Okay. Let's go to the running backs of the Chargers, my favorite, Melvin Gordon. Whew. Melvin Gordon. Okay, so I've always said it, opportunity, right? 284 attempts last year, 58 receptions. He brought the yards with over 1,500 yards total, and he had 12 touchdowns. Plain and simple, Melvin Gordon was the 7th ranked running back last year in fantasy and half-point PPR. Oh, no, he was the 5th ranked running back last year in half-point PPR leagues. Excuse me. And the fact of the matter is, Melvin Gordon is not losing his job anytime soon. He's not like Kareem Hunt where you have to worry just a little bit. Melvin Gordon is at the point where he has secured his job. The touchdown value is there, even though it's not guaranteed. But the fact of the matter is, if you're a starting running back of a team, it's gonna eventually, you're gonna score touchdowns. His yards are there, his receptions are there. It helps for PPR leagues, especially half-point PPR that I play in. The way I see it, Melvin Gordon is a top 7 running back, probably. It depends. The way I see it, I would probably take Melvin Gordon over Kareem Hunt, because I think Kareem Hunt punched a guy in the face last week in a bar, and I don't know if the NFL is, creeping around ready to drop a suspension on his head, but we'll just have to wait and see, because you never know. As of right now, yes, Melvin Gordon has had injury problems for the past couple of years, but at the end of the day, I still trust in Melvin Gordon to the point because the Chargers are an offense that are going to score, and they're going to feed their running back, because their head coach was a running backs coach for the Buffalo Bills a couple years back. So when your head coach used to be a running backs coach, you're obviously going to hand off the ball. Their offensive line is way better than it was last year, because they got Marquise Pouncey from the Dolphins. Their first-round pick from last year, the left guard, has come back from injury. Their interior offensive line and the left tackle, I don't even I don't know. I guess we'll just have to wait and see how the left tackle turns out. But at this point, their interior offensive line and their right tackles is set in stone, and it's pretty consistent. So, again, I would treat Melvin Gordon as the 6th ranked running back, behind the Gurley, Le'Veon Bell, David Johnson, Alvin Kamara, and behind Ezekiel Elliott. Then it would be Melvin Gordon. Anyway, so let's go to the next running back of the Chargers, Austin Eckler, right? Last year, Austin Eckler was a rookie, came in, and my God, did I curse this guy's name every time I saw him on the field. Literally every time this guy comes on the field, he'll somehow score a touchdown. He had 5 touchdowns last year that he poached away from Melvin Gordon. You know, he would take a nice 3-yard dink pass and go 25 and just steal the touchdown. It's like, come on. At the end of the day, touchdowns can't be guaranteed. The way I see it, Austin Eckler is just a handcuff. He's a third down kind of back that's not going to have too much production. If you play in deeper leagues, you can stash him on your bench in order to have that handcuff value just in case Melvin Gordon gets hurt. Other than that, I don't trust Austin Eckler to produce for my team ever, and I don't think he's going to. Plain and simple. So, again, handcuff. That's it. That's all the value he has, handcuff. Okay? So, the number 1 wide receiver for the Chargers, my goodness, Keenan Allen, right? Keenan Allen's a monster. 102 receptions last year, almost 1,400 receiving yards, 6 touchdowns, my goodness. If I'm not mistaken, let me check. If I'm not mistaken, Keenan Allen last season was the 3rd ranked wide receiver when it comes to fantasy points in half-point PPR leagues. I mean, shit. 3rd ranked wide receiver, and you know he was coming off of an ACL torn the year prior. And the way I see it, he's Phillip Rivers' best friend. Rivers and him are going to just continue to grow on that connection between each other. The chemistry's there, and the targets are there. Last season, I always talk about attempts and targets as opportunity. Last season, Keenan Allen had 159 targets, 102 receptions, right? So there was 57 other balls he could have caught. So imagine. He's going to be peppered with targets, and he's going to be a top 5 wide receiver going into the 2018 season. I honestly, in my opinion, like Keenan Allen over Julio Jones. I like him over Michael Thomas. I don't know why. Probably because he's the number. I mean, yes, the other guys are number 1 options. I just like Keenan Allen more. That's all I have to say. I mean, literally, I have no other reason. I just like Keenan Allen more. Julio Jones, I don't know. He's just he never catches touchdowns. Last year he had like 3 touchdowns. Michael Thomas, yes, he scores touchdowns, but his yards are not as much. I don't know. It just depends. I like Keenan Allen more. Okay, man, that glug. Anyway, plain and simple, Keenan Allen, top 5 wide receiver. I'm gonna be going for him, and that's plain and simple. I'm gonna be going for him. Okay, so the other wide receivers, when it comes to the Chargers, man, here's the thing. Tyrell Williams, Travis Benjamin. Those are the 2 that we're going to go over next, right? Tyrell Williams, in 2016, had a lot of value because Keenan Allen tore his ACL. He became the number 1 wide receiver, and he stepped up. He had over 1,000 yards. He had 7 touchdowns. He produced. Last year, he had Mohamed Sanu-like numbers, right? He had numbers, like 700 yards, like a handful of touchdowns, 50-some-odd receptions. The way I see it, in deeper leagues, he is going to be on someone's bench, maybe even playing for somebody, which would just be a travesty. But at the end of the day, the way I see it, because the injury to Hunter Henry and Antonio Gates being released from the Chargers, there is no tight end for the Chargers, right? There's a bunch of receptions to be made by receivers of this Chargers offense, right? Yes, the Chargers usually like to run tight end, but they don't have one right now. And until they find one, I feel like Tyrell Williams can step up and maybe even break 1,000 yards this coming season. But at the end of the day, I wouldn't put too much stock into it just because of the fact that, Keenan Allen is that number 1 receiver, and because they like to run the ball a fuck ton with Melvin Gordon. And because this next guy, Travis Benjamin, he takes away his production. When I mean his is Tyrell Williams. Having a third wide receiver that's as valuable as Travis Benjamin. Travis Benjamin had just as many touchdowns as Tyrell Williams. He had rushing yards within the team, and he had about 600 receiving yards. The way I see it, Phillip Rivers wants to throw the ball a shit ton, right? And because of that, you need 3 wide receivers when you're doing that. I think all these wide receivers' productions are going to go up. Probably Keenan Allen will stay consistent because it's so hard to repeat 1,400 receiving yards a season unless you're Antonio Brown. The way I see it, Tyrell Williams will improve. Travis Benjamin will improve just because there is no longer like a tight end on this team as of this point into the season. So if you play in a deeper league, you can put Tyrell Williams on your bench. I wouldn't touch Travis Benjamin unless you're really desperate, plain and simple. Because he's really a deep threat that, will score once every 4 weeks kind of thing. Okay, so let's go to the next team. How long have we been doing this for? Good, 36 minutes. I haven't gone on a rant on any of these guys. I've kept it short and sweet. Let's just leave it at that. All right, so Derek Carr of the Oakland Raiders. Okay, so here's the question, right? When we're talking about 2018 Derek Carr, we're talking about which Derek Carr are we going to get? Are we going to get the Derek Carr that is on fire, he's confident, he's throwing touchdowns left and right, the gunslinger? Are we going to get that Derek Carr? Or are we going to get the Derek Carr that literally can't get a first down? There were weeks after weeks where they caught like maybe 5 L's in a row. They couldn't convert easy fourth downs, like 4th and 1 they couldn't convert. 3rd and 1 they couldn't convert. 2nd and 1 they couldn't convert. They couldn't do shit. This offense was awful last year. Amari Cooper was awful last year. Marshawn Lynch was awful last year. Crabtree was awful last year. The defense was garbage last year. The offensive line, that was the best offensive line in 2016, somehow evaporated and is no longer the good offensive line that they were. What the fuck happened? The Raiders disappeared. Why? Because Derek Carr sucked last year. Derek Carr was garbage. Okay, so let's put it this way. Let me find so against the teams within his division, against the Chargers, the Broncos, and the Kansas City Chiefs, Derek Carr performed the worst. Okay? When you're losing and you're specifically terrible against teams in your division, that's already a red flag because you have to play each of those teams twice. And I'm not trying to rip up on Derek Carr because I don't like him. He's a good quarterback. But the Kansas City defense is good. The Broncos defense will always be good. And the Chargers defense is becoming an actual monster. Just out of nowhere, they've somehow created the Frankenstein monster, and they're really coming after everybody. So you have to play against 3 good defenses a total of 6 times in a season. Those are 6 games where Derek Carr is not going to show up. So if we get the shitty Derek Carr, expect Derek Carr to be the 20th ranked running back, to have only value in 2 quarterback leagues, and you'll never see him in a 1 quarterback kind of standard league. You'll never see him, right? He should never be drafted in those kind of leagues. If you play in a 2 quarterback league, pray to God that the regular Derek Carr shows up, because everything around him is affected, right? The wide receivers, the running backs, they will all be affected if Derek Carr shows up as a bum, right? There are weeks where Derek Carr shows up, throws 4 touchdowns, great. Then the next 4 weeks, he goes 1 touchdown and 4 interceptions each week. Like, what are you doing? Anyway, Derek Carr only has value in 2 quarterback leagues. I don't even want to get into it anymore than that. I don't know what the hell Derek Carr is sometimes. Hopefully the coaching change for the Raiders makes a difference, but how much is a coaching change going to make on the quarterback's confidence? I don't know. We'll see. Okay, so Marshawn Lynch, right? Came out of retirement in 2017 to play for his hometown Raiders. Had pretty decent stats, right? He was an RB2, almost 900 yards rushing, 7 touchdowns, 150 receiving yards. The way I see it, they took away carries from him, like a heavy amount of carries, right? Just because of how old he is, right? They're thinking, okay, well, if we want to keep him healthy, we have to limit his snaps and we have to limit everything when it comes to him getting hit. So by doing that, his fantasy value will diminish, but at the end of the day, he's probably going to be an RB2 again this coming season, just because that offensive line is, they're going to plow people over here and there, and then they're going to let up 6 sacks in 1 game or some bullshit like that. But anyway, Marshawn Lynch has RB2 value, plain and simple. And let's just continue with the Raiders. I don't want to stick with this team too long. I don't like the Raiders. I don't know what it is. I'll be honest. Doug Martin. Okay, so just look at the screen. Okay, Doug Martin the last 2 years, bum. Both years, bum and bum. Complete garbage. Somehow manages his way to get suspended or injured. I don't know. I don't trust Doug Martin. The way I see it, at least you know who the handcuff to Marshawn Lynch is. The last couple seasons, they had like Richard and they had some other bum that you never even knew who was going to be the handcuff for the Oakland Raiders. Now we know for a fact it'll be Doug Martin, but I don't like Doug Martin, so let's just continue. Okay, so talking about not showing up, which Derek Carr we're going to get. What Amari Cooper are we going to get? Last year he was awful. He was atrocious. There were weeks where he would show up and score 1 point in fantasy. Like, how do you do that? You were supposed to be a wide receiver 1 last year. You know, there were analysts and there are football people that are like, oh, Amari Cooper is a walking Hall of Famer. He's going to be in the Hall of Fame. He's fantastic. Well, where was that last year? 48 receptions, 680 yards, and 7 touchdowns. Where did you go, Amari Cooper? Well, what happened? Your yards went down almost 500. Your receptions almost went down by 40. What happened? It's like half your player just disappeared, went into the garbage can. Like, what happened to Amari Cooper? I'm assuming it was Derek Carr's fault, right? Because let's blame Derek Carr. Crabtree didn't play well last year, like we went over a couple weeks ago. Amari Cooper didn't play well last year. I'm going to blame Derek Carr, plain and simple, right? So when you're thinking about drafting Raiders, think, which Derek Carr are we going to get this year? Are we going to get the one that's slinging and, you know, popping and finger popping? Or are we going to get the Derek Carr that's just like, I threw another pick. Well, better luck next time. You know, which one are we going to get? Other than that, if we get let's just go through scenarios, yeah? If we get the good Derek Carr, Amari Cooper can be a wide receiver 1 or a high-end wide receiver 2, plain and simple. We could get that. He has the potential, right? Because he's a good player, right? I'm not going to say he's a future Hall of Famer because you can't determine that at this point, especially coming off of that shit season. The way I see it, he has potential. If he doesn't act upon the potential, then so be it. You're going to be crying with this guy sitting on your bench because he can't do anything. But I doubt that happens again. He'll probably be a wide receiver 2-ish this year. Okay? So, the next receiver on this team. Okay, real quick. Jordy Nelson, right? I cannot believe that the Packers let go of Jordy Nelson. I mean, what are they actually thinking? In 2016, okay, when Rodgers was healthy, right? Last year, he wasn't healthy. Rodgers broke his collarbone 4 games into the season. When Jordy Nelson was healthy when Aaron Rodgers was healthy, in 2016, he had almost 1,300 receiving yards, almost 100 receptions, and 14 receiving touchdowns. What? Why would you get rid of this guy? Oh, well, Jordy, we don't want to pay him. What do you mean you don't want to pay him? He's Aaron Rodgers' best friend. Okay, so be it. We're going to let Jordy go. He went to the Raiders. Now, this is not a terrible spot for Jordy Nelson. Michael Crabtree is no longer a part of this offense, and Jordy Nelson's a pretty damn good receiver. He's a Pro Bowl caliber receiver. Now, is he going to play second fiddle to Amari Cooper? That's the question. Who's going to be the number 1 wide receiver? Because Jordy's never been the second fiddle to anybody throughout his entire career, right? So the way I see it, we just have to wait and see. Will Derek Carr, move towards throwing Jordy Nelson the ball? Because if he does, Jordy Nelson can be a high-end wide receiver too. He can carry somebody's team because of the fact that he's going to be drafted low. So the way I see it, the risk and reward kind of ratio at this point, I'll take the risk and the reward of Jordy Nelson. I don't care about shitty Raiders. I think that Jordy Nelson at a good value later, probably like 6th round, I'll take that shit. Easy money, plain and simple. Other than that, that's all I can say. He's wide receiver 2 upside. And if he can somehow, I don't know. I don't think Derek Carr is Aaron Rodgers, but, Jordy Nelson is a hell of an athlete and a hell of a football player. Okie dokie. I'm kind of raging. I don't know what happened. I got triggered with these Raiders. Okay, so Jared Cook. Last year had pretty good stats. 54 receptions, almost 700 yards receiving, 2 touchdowns. He was the 13th ranked tight end amongst tight ends in half-point PPR leagues. The way I see it, if you don't draft the top 5 tight end, good luck. We're done. Done. We don't care. We're not going to bullshit anymore. Okay? Draft the top 5 tight end. I'll make an episode on drafting top 5 tight ends and when to draft them and why you should draft them and who has more value because of blah, blah, blah. I swear to God. I'll do it. I don't care. Okay. Excuse me. Let's go over the last team. I'm going to relax a little bit. We're going to go over the Denver Broncos. They don't have much talent, but they do have fantasy value at the end of the day, okay? So, the quarterback of the Denver Broncos this coming season is going to be Case Keenum, okay? Coming over from the Vikings, he had a great season. He led them to the playoffs. And at the end of the day, Case Keenum, he's a pretty decent quarterback, right? His entire career within the NFL has not been great. He's played for some shitty teams, a la the Rams when Jeff Fisher was the head coach of that team. And, that's not a winning scenario, right? He was brought to the Vikings to be the second-string quarterback. Sam Bradford got hurt after one game. My God, I hate Sam Bradford. And Case Keenum took over. When you surround a good player with good talent, they're going to be better than they usually are, right? If the situation that you're put in matters so much in the NFL and in football. Because you can't carry your team by yourself, right? Everyone has to do their job. Everyone has to contribute, and that's why he was successful last year. Now, he's going from a playoff caliber team and a division-winning team like the Vikings to the last place Denver Broncos of their division. Now, don't get me wrong. The Denver Broncos, they got a good defense. A couple years back, they won a Super Bowl with Noodle Neck Manning. They still were able to produce somehow. But the way I see it, Case Keenum is kind of a coin toss. Funny stat about Case Keenum, he's the leading, I think he leads in passing yards and passing touchdowns in NCAA history. Who would have guessed that, right? Out of the University of Houston, who the hell is Case Keenum? I've never even heard of this guy until he was on the Rams last year and he was taking snaps from Jared Goff. What happened to the brightness in my room? It turned red. Oh my goodness. Anyway. The way I see it, Case Keenum, unless you play in a 2 QB league, has no value. Okay? If you play in a 2 QB league, playing for the Broncos is tough, but he could have, wow, what happened to the coloring of my room? It's red now. Okay, anyway, he could have value. And I don't know what the hell's happening to the coloring, but we're just going to continue to go and hope that I don't drive myself crazy. I'll just look at the camera from here on out. Plain and simple, Case Keenum, unless you play in 2 QB leagues, has no value. When you do play in 2 QB leagues, he's going to be drafted very low, right? When I mean low, is later rounds, 10th, 11th round. In a 2 QB league, he'll be drafted that low. Why? Because projection-wise, he's not going to be projected to do much, and I don't know if he really will do much. He has 2 really good receivers. Okay, he has Demaryius Thomas, he has Emmanuel Sanders. Both of those guys are consistently 1,000-yard receivers. So if he can continue to deliver the ball to them and they get fantasy value out of it, great. But other than that, I don't really trust Case Keenum much coming into this 2018 season. And that's it. You'll see in my rankings next week where I put him. He's probably going to be around the Andy Dalton, Tyrod Taylor range, which is, low-end QB2s, which is only for, 2 QB leagues. Okay, so Devontae Booker. Let's just go through this quickly. Devontae Booker's been with the Denver Broncos last couple seasons, and he's never been able to win the job from C.J. Anderson. Now that C.J. Anderson is no longer with the team, he is on the Carolina Panthers. Devontae Freeman is being given the starting position. But the fact of the matter is, I don't think he's going to win this job. Eventually, the rookie running back that they drafted, Royce Freeman, is going to come out of nowhere and take this job from him. Because Devontae Booker is really not that good. His rushing yard per average even says it. 3.5 and 3.8 in the first 2 years of his career. Only scoring, a total of 5 rushing touchdowns in 2 years. He's not great. As of right now, he's probably going to start the season as the starting running back, but his job will be taken away from him by this guy, Royce Freeman, out of the University of Oregon. Hell of a running back. My God, this guy can do it all. He can receive, he can run, and especially his outside speed. When they threw tosses at Oregon, this guy would just burn people, just completely burn people. great ball carrier vision. He is going to be the workhorse back for this team in 2018. The question is, when is that going to happen? Is it going to be week 1? I don't know. It really just depends what happens in the preseason and in training camp as the weeks develop. The way I see it, if you can, in your later rounds, stash Royce Freeman, and I swear it'll pay off because he's eventually going to be the starting running back of this team. Royce Freeman, remember that name, okay? So let's go to the wide receivers for the Broncos. Number 1, Demaryius Thomas. The thing about Demaryius Thomas, if I'm not mistaken, since 2013, he's had 1,000 yards receiving every single year, right? Especially with Peyton Manning. That one year with Peyton Manning where he had 1,600 receiving yards and like plus 10 touchdowns. He was just, burning down the entire league. Obviously, Nudelek Manning left. They had Osweiler. They had Trevor Siemian. They had Paxton Lynch. They just had a plethora of average, mediocre, garbage quarterbacks that all should be, they should all not start in the NFL and they should all be, backups. So the way he, produced last year, it wasn't great. But at the end of the day, he's getting a better upgrade on quarterback. Will he produce? I don't know. Usually he's a 1,000-yard receiving kind of guy. Will Case Keenum, throw him enough balls to get him to there? It's possible. I see that it's more likely that happens because who else are they going to throw the ball to? Who else is going to carry the ball, right? Royce Freeman can't carry the ball 290 times next year, 300 times, right? Besides Demaryius Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders, who we're going to go over next, there is no tight end on this team. There is no third wide receiver on this team. The way I see it, the only, fantasy value of this team is that quarterback in 2 QB leagues, Royce Freeman, Emmanuel Sanders, and, who we're looking at, Demaryius Thomas right now. He's probably going to be a mid-range, low-end wide receiver 2 this coming year because he's going to get, his 1,000 yards most likely, and he's going to get, 5 touchdowns again. But so is Emmanuel Sanders, who we're just going to go into right now. Emmanuel Sanders last year only played 12 games, was injured for majority of the season. Obviously, his production dipped because of that. And the last couple of years, since 2014, coming over from Pittsburgh to Denver, he's been a 1,000-yard receiver per year kind of guy as well. Both of these receivers have potential to being wide receiver 2s this coming year. But at the end of the day, it all depends on Case Keenum. So if you trust in Case Keenum, you can draft these receivers to be your number 2 wide receiver, maybe even number 3 because they're going to be overlooked. The way I see it, at the end of the day, Emmanuel Sanders, Demaryius Thomas, they have value, but it's the risk of having Case Keenum under center that kind of scares me, plain and simple. Let's click on this next slide. Oh, look at that. It's a tight end from the Broncos. Okay, I literally only made this slide so I can tell you, again, to draft the top 5 quarterback. Draft Gronkowski, draft Kelsey, draft Ertz, draft Greg Olsen, and draft Jimmy Graham. Just one of the 5. I don't care which one of the 5 you draft. Obviously, the better ones will go way earlier. They'll go in the 3rd. They'll go in the 4th round, the top of the 4th round, late 3rd. If you can wait and pick up Jimmy Graham in like the 5th, my goodness, you'll be set. Aaron Rodgers will be throwing him the ball a bunch of times. Other than that, this tight end is completely worthless. I just wanted to show you this so I can do my propaganda of top 5 tight ends again. Anyway, how long have we gone for today? 55 minutes. Yeah, it's because I raged through the Raiders. The way I see it, that's it. That's the AFC West, not NFC. AFC West, right? Consisting of the Broncos, the Raiders, the Chargers, and the Chiefs. There's a lot of value within this division. Majority of the value comes from wide receivers, right? Tyreek Hill, Sammy Watkins, Keenan Allen, Tyrell Williams, Amari Cooper, Jordy Nelson, Demaryius Thomas, Emmanuel Sanders. Those are 8 good receivers that can all be wide receiver 2s this year, right? But they can't all be wide receiver 2s. Someone's got to, eventually either get hurt or someone's got to step up and become a wide receiver 1. Someone's got to play like a bum and become a wide receiver 3. So it's all about who you expect to be there. What can you project? What other variables can affect it. Is your quarterback healthy? Is your quarterback Derek Carr and not showing up every week? Is your quarterback Phillip Rivers that's going to show up every week? Is your quarterback a rookie that didn't play a single game last year till the end of the season and has very little experience? Those kind of variables make a difference. The way I see it, I like Chargers receivers out of all these receivers. I like Chargers running backs. I like Chargers quarterbacks. I like Chargers. Draft Chargers players, okay? This has become, I'm going out of control. Chargers players. I don't know how we got here, but at the end of the day, thank you for watching. Please like, share, subscribe, follow whatever I'm doing. And I'm tilted. Yeah, I'm tilted. Anyway, thanks for watching.